This home here, I built it in 1988. I wasn't even allowed to be in this area. And now I own this home. My wife and I, we built it. We had a rough time getting it financed, but we paid the majority of the money for it. But now I can say I live in a neighborhood that when I was young, I wasn't even allowed to be in here after the sun go down. All of these surrounding homes, none of them was out here at that time. And now we have several homes, and the majority of this area is all black. The biggest change that I could see in the neighborhood is now they're letting all nationalities of people move into the same neighborhood. And they're upkeeping the neighborhood better than what they used to. This location here was at the city limits, but they finally brought it into the city limits. Oh, the crime has increased considerably because we used to could leave our doors open. We had the mailboxes. When we go to buy stamps, we put the money in the mailbox, and the postman will get the money out and put the correct amount of stamps in there, but now you can't trust anyone in that way.
Well, hello there. So here we are finally today, a time that we have set aside so that you would be able to share with us the great legacy that you have here in this community, not only with your family and your children, but all of those that have followed in your footsteps. It is indeed an honor to be here with you today, as I affectionately call you Daddy Pickett. And I'm just so intrigued how God has sustained you and God has given you everything that you need to still be standing here as a giant in our community, taking obstacles and turning them into opportunities. That indeed is your life. You would agree? Yes, absolutely. So, want to ask you, law enforcement. Why did you choose law enforcement back in the 1950s? Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Well, I was working downtown at Montgomery Ward. When you leave there, you had to go behind the train station because on Pine Street was the shortest cut. But there was, every other place was a tavern. Yes. And the minorities just didn't walk down Pine Street, especially on Saturday nights. So I came behind the train station and I looked and I saw a police officer standing on the corner. I was very happy. But then he the one that started talking like a black person would not want to hear. And so I went home and told my parents that I wanted to be a police officer to prove that you didn't have to be that type of individual. And my dad then went to the city commissioners and asked for policemen.
As we all know, racial prejudice was very rampant in the 1950s and the 1960s. How were you able to make arrests, not only in our community, but in the community, in the white community? And were you even able to?
No, it wasn't allowed, and it was very embarrassing that we ride around in the community. They can come through the community speeding or running a stop sign, and then your race see that, and you can't stop them. And so you have to look the other way, but it was very embarrassing, but we put up with it.
I wanted to ask you about promotions. Back then, were promotions given to the black officers as they were the other officers? And if so, how was that procedure handled?
No, there was no promotions given. After I had started traveling and was a fingerprint expert, all the other departments had lieutenants, captains, and etc. And I asked for a promotion, and I had passed the test, but they wouldn't promote me. So I went and got an attorney and told them I was ready to make a lawsuit, and Carrie Odom being black, she was the mayor. So that's how I received my first promotion.
So with your job title, what did it entail? Not only were you the first black person ever in this field, explain to me how you were able to set yourself apart from your other co-workers.
It was a lot different. I took a corresponding course because I was very small in stature, and I didn't want to be in uniform all my life. So when I saw an article that said that you could be a detective, I sent off and I took that course. And there where I began to study and taught myself fingerprint, handwriting, and typewriting, that I could do it. And from there I went up to be a fingerprint expert.
So tell me, to those that are watching this documentary, you were the first ever fingerprinting crime scene photographer. How did that affect you, not only you, but your family? What was the salary at the time, and how did you survive off of it?
It affected all of us. Even the department I was working in didn't want to give that position to me. I had gone to the FBI Academy several times where an FBI agent saw something in me, and he had the city to just pay my salary, but they paid for all expense. And I would go, and each time I would look at a print, they would not allow me to go in the courtroom and testify on that print. I had to send it to Washington. Take them 2 or 3 weeks before they say I had the correct print. Then if the subject plead not guilty, the FBI agent have to catch a plane to come to Tampa, then run a car to go to Bartow, and then run a motel. And so one day I knew the fellow was not going to plead guilty. And I organized it and got my photos all together. And when the subpoena was served, the captain asked me, had I heard from the FBI? My heart began to jump then because I knew I hadn't. And I told him I had forgot to send it off. And he said these words, "Who in the hell gonna go in the courtroom and testify?" I said, "I will." He said, "You know D well you can't go in there." So he was very mad, and he called the state attorney's office. And the state attorney told him, "You all having a problem, not me." And that's how I got in the courtroom.
Wow, amazing. Absolutely amazing. And today, with all of that you went through, in today's society, everyone is so bent on having X amount of dollars as their salary before they would even consider a job offer. So what was the salary at the time? How did you survive? I mean, how did you purchase a home, a car, pay your bills, and send both of your children to school? How did that happen?
Couldn't bet nothing else but the Lord. My wife, she had owned a daycare center, and so with her income and my income, that's the way we was able to do it.
I understand that you taught in 3 different junior colleges, but only had a 12th grade education. How was that possible?
The Lord, the state gave me permission to teach crime scene photography and so forth in junior colleges. So I taught in Polk, Highland, and Hardy, Pasco County.
So going back to your position as a fingerprinting crime scene photographer, I can imagine many of your coworkers and colleagues tried to prevent you from excelling. What made you stand out among the others? What did you do that the others failed to do or they couldn't do?
I just wanted to prove that I could be someone. I'll go back. The position that I had, they wouldn't give it to me. I had to fight to get that position. They had another officer, Caucasian officer, that was taking the same course that I was taking, and his desk was in front of my desk. And he would have to ask me what to do. So he left town and went to Kentucky, and they told him they were going to look for somebody to replace him. And he was gone 3 months, and they didn't find anybody, but they still wouldn't give me the position. So when he came back, they told him his position was still available, and he told them to give it to me because I knew more than he did. That's how I got the position.
When I look at all these plaques and accomplishments that you have here in your office here at your beautiful home, and all the photos of you and some of their city top leaders, city officials, and others in various fields, I have to ask, why you? What was your drive? I mean, you paved the way for so many. What made you stand out amongst all the others?
Just being me and with God. And I did the very best I could, and I kept going. And it was an all-white organization, the Florida Division International Association. And I would travel with them, go to these seminars. And they always, when they have the big parties, they called me the chaser drinker.
Okay.
And they had respect for me because the only thing I would do was drink Coke or orange juice. And they made me the president of the state. I was the only black member of the state of Florida. They made me the ID Officer of the Year for the whole state of Florida.
Awesome. That's awesome. What were some of the places that you were able and afforded to visit?
I went to Ottawa, Canada,
Yes.
California, Texas, Carolina, Georgia, and all down South Florida. I went to all the places, Miami, Key Biscayne, and so I traveled the country.
Yes. So here we are today. I'm looking at a 91-year-old young man who came through 2 brain strokes, a broken back, cracked ribs, hip challenges, all on top of being shot. You have to know that God has his hands on you. Did you ever ask the question, Lord, why me?
Fear came to me one time, but God told me not to be fearful. And what really, really pushed me, every day I'll read my Bible before I go to work and on the job. And I never forget, I had a supervisor, he was Jewish, and someone did something to me that day. And he came in and said, Sergeant, I know you're not mad. I said, why? He said, because I see you reading your Bible every day. And that encouraged me to keep moving forward. And from there, I worked for every police department in Polk County. They didn't have any identification officers. I have letters from every chief of police in Polk County and Plant City, where they sent in a report on me working for their department and setting it up.
Wow, that's a lot of stress.
Yes, they would come bring work to my house at night after I get off duty. If they have a print in Winter Haven or somewhere and they wanted it looked at right away, they would come and wake me up for me to look at that print.
So being in law enforcement, of course, it's a lot of stress, a lot of worration on you. And I'm sure there are those that you worked right beside who possibly turned to alcohol, drugs, and smoking due to the stress and the racial injustice during those times. Did you ever find yourself turning to those type of things, alcohol or drugs, just to get through the day? And how did you manage to keep your head on straight without caving under all of the pressure?
Well, I still was fearful of my dad. He was small in stature,
Yes.
but I never tried to drink nor smoke. So I just had to keep the Lord on my side.
Was your marriage ever affected by what you had to face, endure, and overcome? Here you are, married to the same woman for over 69 years. What kept you two united in marriage when the world around you was constantly divided? What kept you united?
Well, she had to love me because she had people cursing on the phone and threatening the letters that we received and say that I was not born of a woman, but some great scientists invented something, and if there was any way they could find it, do away with me, they would do it, and she took it like a champ. I don't think the average lady or wife would have been able to withstand what my wife did.
Beautiful. A real Proverbs 31 woman. Yes. Absolutely. I read somewhere that in 1982, the doctors told your family that you were going to die. Tell me about that.
Yes, I had congestive heart failure and I had 2 heart attacks. So they sent me off to see what they could do over in Tampa, and they came back and the doctor told me he had done all he could do and just bring me back to and take the medicine that we had. So that night, the Holy Spirit told me to get my wife up. And we got up and we got on our knees and held hands and we prayed. 4 days that morning, she woke up and said, "Pickett, there's a miracle on the way." And I've been here ever since.
And I'm a witness to that.
Yes.
Sitting here, having the honor to interview you. Do you think that we as a country this day have made any progress?
Very, very little progress. We as a nation of people are holding ourselves back too. We are not fighting. And I would like to see it go faster. I'd like to see it get stronger. And I know it can if we as a nation of people get together and we unify ourselves.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today to share your story, share your life. I'd like to end this interview by one question, this documentary. I would like to just ask you, to this generation, what would be one thing that you would share with them today?
I would tell them, first of all, put God in their life. Then the next thing, read. If you cannot go to college, there should be some type of trade, because you can make just as much money teaching school as anything with doing electrical work, plumbing work, and it's there. And our young men and young boys should get out, go to a trade school, and try to take up a trade. I had to move and do something because I couldn't afford to go to college with my parents. Didn't have the money. So that's the reason why I wanted to reach to the height, do something different. I didn't just want to stay at a standstill where I was the display manager at Montgomery Ward and wasn't making any money. But my wife and I, we built a house out of $27.50 a week. I had never built a home in my life. And we built it with a lamp light, handsaw, square and a level. And we built that home, and it's still standing.
Yes. And we thank you. It is a lovely home. And Edgar T. Pickett Jr., it indeed has been an honor. Thank you for your contribution to not only to the city of Lakeland, but the state of Florida, and those working in the nation, from the FBI to CSI and the fingerprinting. We thank you and we honor you.
And I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak with you and to do the very best I can on it. And I know that one day we'll go out for lunch, I guess.
We will.